YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and the Tomb Kings have arrived. Today, we're going to start off by looking at their campaign start positions, an overview, and my thoughts on the DLC. YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here with more Tomb Kings info. Hope you all are excited for this. I'm going to show you the different legendary lords. If you want to see more about these legendary lords, I also have a video out where I have showed you a little bit about their abilities and a little bit of cinematic views of them on the battlefield, so you can go check that out. But let's talk a little bit about how these lords play out in the campaign and what you can expect. So Settra the Imperishable has an easy start position. He starts, I don't even know what to call it. It's the deserts where the vampires used to be there. You're south of the Badlands. I don't know why I can't remember the name of that continent right now. I'll get it later. But in any case, yeah, Settra starts there. He basically, his effects on the faction, he adds extra public order. Or no, sorry, this is just the general Tomb Kings faction effects. There's extra public order, growth, and construction time is a little bit less for province capitals. But his specific effects is he has a bigger aura size. It's bigger by 100%. And he gives better casualty replenishment rates for Tomb Guard and Skeleton Chariot units. So if you're going to use those, they recover more quickly whenever you're playing a Settra the Imperishable. In his army, he starts with a Tomb Guard with Halberd, which is a nice unit to have for anti-large early in the game. But more importantly, he starts with the Cimmerian War Sphinx. This thing is freaking beast in the early campaign. It stomps the crap out of infantry and missiles that are not well prepared to stop it, and then lords that aren't mounted. This Cimmerian War Sphinx is going to be a monster, literally, of a unit for you. When you start an early campaign, it causes terror, and it is just brutal. If you get a Necrotech, you can further support it too with extra buffs. But yeah, this War Sphinx is going to be pretty cool. So let me show you the start position and what you're up against with Settra. So here's your campaign start position. You can see that he's going to start here in the Land of the Dead, near the Ash River and all these other places here. You're going to actually start very near the Black Pyramid of Nagash itself. And this is the Khemri faction. Again, being led by Settra the Imperishable. Here's your starting army. And just to cover a couple of general things, his start position, he starts at war with these top knots, which are going to be Savage Orcs. So that's really the only faction you start at war with. The other factions around you, depending on your difficulty setting, may or may not be very hostile. You're mostly surrounded by other Tomb Kings, but there are some vampires here to your south and southeast. So keep that in mind as well. But yeah, the Savage Orcs are good ones to get rid of. They don't really have any allies, and they're fun to attack. So let's explain a little bit about how the campaign map works for the Tomb Kings while we're here looking at Settra's start position. Also, they mention it's an easy start position. It's because, you know, you're in a relatively secure position. You're probably not going to be attacked immediately by the other Tomb King factions, and you can win a pretty easy war against the Savage Orcs early on because of your Cimmerian War Sphinx. So you're in pretty good shape. A few things that you should be aware of. The Books of Nagash. There isn't a vortex mechanic, and they've mentioned this for the Tomb Kings. You're instead looking for Books of Nagash. You have to collect 5 out of 9. It shows you where they're at on the map. You can see this is the campaign map here, and we can also see that there are certain ones. So, like for instance, the first book of Nagash, 6th book, whatever. It shows you where they're at. This one's up in Ulthuan, and it tells you what you have to do in order to get it. Well, you've got to defeat the following Lord's army, which is like a rogue army, Pilgrims of Myrmidia. This one you would have to capture the White Tower of Hoeth. This one you'd have to capture the Lost Plateau. You'd have to defeat the Dwellers of Zardok. So it tells you what the requirement is to obtain these books. So you have to go and hunt down 5 of them if you want to get towards campaign victory. Because when you look at the objectives, you have to have at least 5 books, the Black Pyramid, and win a battle at the Black Pyramid for campaign. Or you can do a domination victory, which is here. So that gives you an idea of what your objectives are. So that's the Books of Nagash. Now there's some other cool mechanics here. The Tomb Kings do not pay any upkeep or recruitment cost for lords or for units. That's stupid. They're going to be crazy OP. Well, they're going to be different, that's for sure. So again, you don't pay any recruitment cost. You can see the recruitment ability here, but you can see some units are limited in the number that you can have. and I will explain what drives that limits. The units that are unlimited are skeleton warriors and skeleton spears. So you can spam these guys all day long without any kind of penalty. However, you are going to be limited on the number of armies that you can field based on your strength, and I believe we can see that up here underneath the Tomb King faction. Armies 1, and you can see here I can't have any heroes yet because I don't have the right buildings or technologies. So those are just things to be aware of. But if I go in here and say that I want to recruit a new lord, which, let's go over here, you can recruit a new lord. I can't recruit any because I'm at armies 1 of 1. So you can see that that's kind of how they get contained, to make sure they're not going to be too ridiculous since they don't pay any recruitment or upkeep. You have to do research. If you look at your research tree, it's really cool. You've got dynasties, so you have to do these long research times to unlock a dynasty, and each dynasty unlocks an army capacity. So they're important to research, but within these dynasties down here on the bottom and to the right in the dynasties, you're going to see things that buff certain units within your roster. Up at the top of the dynasty, you have to use this new currency, which we'll talk about, which is canopic jars. You can unlock a special Tomb King to lead the new army that you've unlocked, but it's going to cost you canopic jars. You can also recruit just, plain old crappy lords that don't have a lot of special abilities, but some of these Tomb Kings have special abilities, and they're really cool. So, like, for instance, this is Wakaf of the First Dynasty. It gives you a cool character to bring into, and it makes you not just care about your legendary lords, but you also are going to care about these guys because they're special, and you brought them into the campaign, and they have special abilities and a meaning. So it's pretty neat. Then up top, you're going to have special research in each of the dynasties that lets you have more heroes. So again, this is how I'm going to get Lich Priest, Necrotechs, and Tomb Princes. And then at the very bottom, there's kind of like a big buff that each dynasty brings you. It's called the proclamation of that dynasty. So it costs you quite a lot of gold, but it's going to get you one big buff that usually has faction-wide ramifications. So the research tree is very cool. When you do research a dynasty, it decreases your research rate, but then your research rate kind of builds back up over time. So it's interesting to see the way that works. It's a very cool tech tree, and it goes a long ways over here. And eventually, if you unlock this 6th dynasty, there's a whole bunch of different abilities and stuff you can unlock for different units with canopic jars, and it's pretty sweet. It's pretty cool. So they have a very neat tech tree that is very unique, along with the Books of Nagash being very unique. So again, it's a Vortex campaign, but we don't have the Vortex up top because the Tomb Kings just aren't concerned about that Vortex. They just, I guess, want to reclaim their power. Now, in terms of income, you will notice that you're going to be very short of income. The Tomb Kings don't make as much income as other factions because they don't pay the upkeep and the recruitment cost, which means that it can sometimes take you a long time to build buildings. But one of the first things you'll want to do in any Tomb Kings campaign is either capture a port settlement or send a lord out through a port settlement onto the high seas to collect treasures. The treasures don't give you as much income as they do for other factions, but they give you a lot. It's 1,000 up to 3,000 gold for finding the treasures, and that makes a huge difference in the Tomb King campaign so that you can build buildings, because buildings are what makes your army more powerful. In every province, you'll find yourself probably wanting to build military buildings. You don't do that with every faction because you don't need them. Well, for the Tomb Kings, you need it. So for instance, this Bone Shaper unlocks 2 skeleton chariots that I can recruit. Well, if I upgrade it, I can now get 2 skeleton archer chariots as well. And then if I upgrade it again, I can get a Screaming Skull catapult. Well, if I build the same building in another province, I can now get 4 skeleton chariots as a faction. I can get 4 skeleton archer chariots and 2 Screaming Skull catapults. So again, their buildings, military-wise at least, build upon each other, and you'll want to put them in multiple provinces so that you don't just have trashy skeleton spam armies. You're going to want to have awesome armies. So building buildings and getting the money to build buildings and the territory to build these buildings is going to be your drive as the Tomb Kings, because as you do, that is going to give you the momentum. As you build these buildings and you can start to field a whole bunch of really good units like sepulchral stalkers and scorpions and war sphinx and all these other things, those are going to be what make you very, very powerful in the end. Arrow Titan, Hero Titans here, oh man, I can't wait. This guy's the laser-eyed dude that's freaking awesome. So anyway, that's their military buildings. There are certain buildings that will earn you income, and you can still trade with other factions too. So again, income, build some buildings that give you income, go out and find treasures, and then build up trade buildings and try and trade with other Tomb Kings to start with. I even got Lothern to trade with me once. And that's how you're going to make your money as the Tomb Kings. Also, you're going to want trade resources, and we'll explain why, because of canopic jars. Canopic jars are like a special currency for the Tomb Kings, and you can use these to do special things, like whenever they have a special event pop up. You can also use them to craft things over here at your mortuary cult. So this is a really cool feature that is unique to the Tomb Kings and the mortuary cult. You can use a combination of gold, canopic jars, and trade resources to do a whole bunch of different things. So first of all, they have these regiments of renown. They call them legions of legend. So you can awaken these and make them available for recruitment by meeting the criteria that it has here. So for instance, if you want to unlock the Venom Knights of Asaph, you're going to need 1850 gold, 300 canopic jars. You're going to have access to exotic animals, iron, and golden idols, which are trade resources. So then you can hit awaken, and then they become available to recruit. And then you have weapons, so you can craft weapons for your lords and heroes. This is very cool because, again, if you get the right resources, you can choose the weapons that go to your heroes rather than relying on random drops. Very, very cool. Same thing with armor. Same thing with enchanted items, talismans, and arcane items. So you get a lot of control in this mortuary cult over how you're going to specialize your different Tomb Kings heroes and characters. So again, a very awesome feature. In terms of rites, they have these 4 rites. The Incantation of Tahath, which is pretty cool because it unlocks a Casket of Souls, and this thing can do tremendous damage to melee blobs, so it's a pretty cool rite. You get the special Necrotect. You can use them to colonize a ruined settlement, which is pretty cool in the sense that you don't have to send an army over and waste a whole bunch of troops colonizing a settlement. So this one basically gives you this Necrotect, and you can go colonize an empty settlement. The Great Incantation of Kazaar, this one is sweet because it causes a giant sandstorm in all of your regions, and if there's enemies in there, they take massive attrition to the sandstorm. It only lasts for 5 turns, but like if you're getting invaded and you don't have armies everywhere where you want, you can throw the sandstorm up. Your armies will be immune to it. You get extra ambush chance, and it's going to start hurting all the enemies who are invading your lands. And then the last one is this Great Incantation of Geheb, which is going to give you extra canopic jars, 1 per turn, extra growth, construction, and it gives you this Tomb Swarm ability, which is a direct damage spell that'll be available to your armies. So definitely cool rites. And anyway, yeah, Settra, his start position's easy just because, like I said, he's surrounded by relatively similar factions with relatively easy land, lots of trade resources and people to trade with, so that's why he's going to have an easy start. Let's go look at the next legendary lord and their start. We won't obviously have to explain those mechanics over and over again now that you understand Tomb King campaign mechanics.
We must preserve this world.
I will return to Henry. Join with us, exiles.
So the next lord we'll take a look at is the Grand Hierophant Kateb. And the faction effects when you're playing as him, they settle in mountain climates, which is interesting. They get 2 canopic jars generated per turn, which that's actually going to be pretty sweet. But they have a big penalty with Dark Elves because they start near the Dark Elves. They're actually located on the continent of Nagaron, which is going to be very interesting. And then the campaign movement range bonus for all armies and replenishment rate. The Lord's effects is he gets extra hero capacity for Lich Priest, and the recruit rank is higher. So more magic, more heroes that can use magic. It's a hard start, though, because you're going to start surrounded by enemies. Let's go take a look at his start position. Alright, so here's your start position with Kateb. It's definitely going to be a more difficult start. You can see he starts over here on the Ashen Coast, near Nagaron and the Cult of Pleasure, so you're going to have some tough foes immediately in the game. And then when you look at what is a climate that they are really well suited to, fortunately all this area around you is very suitable in terms of climate, so there is a lot of space to expand to that's going to have a very suitable climate, and there are a few trade resources around, but like I said, you're going to be up against some difficult factions, and the main lands here is an unpleasant climate for the Tomb Kings. So I mean, you'll have your options open to you. But like I said, you're going to be starting off immediately against these Dark Elf factions who will no doubt have friendly feelings towards the main Dark Elf factions, which can be a little bit scary. So that's going to make Katep's start a little more challenging. But again, if you look at his, and I didn't look at the skill tree on Cetra, I should have showed you the skill tree. I might actually go back and splice that in. But if we look at the skill tree here, obviously he's got all of his magic here for the lore of Nehekhara. I think for me, favorite spell in the lore of Nehekhara is this Incantation of the Skullstorm. It's really, really nice damage spell for Vortex, Arcane Conduit. And then, of course, all the Tomb King's Lords can buff up their different units similar to others. And then down here on the bottom, you have your Route Marcher, stuff that helps you heal faster. You can actually start collecting Canopic Jars, so if you start doing this in all your Lords, you can start collecting a pretty large number of Canopic Jars every turn, especially when you start adding it up with everything else. And then you can see his mounts up here too, the Skeletal Steed, the Chariot, the Casket of Skulls. So very, very cool features that you get from Katep. And like it says, you can recruit extra Lich Priest and stuff. And he gets a Eero Titan. We'll go use that unit in battle real quick just so you all can see it. So I'll see you on the battlefield and show you the sweet unit that he gets to start with. Alright, here he is on the battlefield. Let's see some of his special abilities. He's got Shim's Burning Gaze built in, because Lore of Light is one of the ones available to the Beastmen, Tomb Kings. He's got Spirit Leech on a built-in cast, which is pretty cool too. So you know he's good at helping to cause some damage to enemy lords. You can see he's got huge mass, get through, cause big melee blobs while the rest of your units do their work. Let's watch him in action here, getting into these dark shards. Come on, laser eyes. I want to see some laser eye action. Do it. Where's the laser eyes? It's pretty cool. It's basically like a giant for the Tomb Kings. That's the kind of unit it looks like here. Isn't this the guy with the laser eyes? I think it should be.
The enemy is charging.
Come on, I want to see those laser eyes, dang it. Man, he looks pretty awesome. So yeah, this is going to be a fun unit to start with in terms of if you start with Katep. Going to have access to this unit. It's going to give you a lot of power in the early game. There it is. Now we're talking. Got to see the laser eyes. So there you go. Get to see the main unit for them in action on the battlefield. Pretty cool stuff. Alright, the next Tomb King legendary lord we want to talk through is High Queen Khalida. She's going to be a really cool addition to the game and have some neat abilities and a unique feel to her, not to mention looking freaking awesome and using these sepulchral stalkers or whatever they're called. Very cool. So she likes jungle climates, which is interesting because she's going to start actually, I believe, on the southern tips of Lustria, which is going to be a really interesting start. So it'll be near where Tekla starts. There's that desert there, and it's going to give you the ability to start off fighting against different factions rather than just you know, all the Tomb Kings having a start in the deserts, the land of the dead, basically. So she gets extra diplomatic relations with other Tomb King factions, which could be cool and help you with trade. She's going to get extra ammunition for all of her armies, and then the Lord effects is her whole army has poison attacks, which is absurd. It's going to be really, really good. I don't believe that carries into multiplayer, but it's going to be really good in the campaign. It's kind of like what, one of the Vampire Lords does the same thing. There's 50% less casualties suffered from all attrition, which means that she can move through hostile territory a lot better. And then this Untainted. So if you're capturing territory that has Vampire Corruption, Chaos Corruption, Skaven Corruption, she's going to be a lot better at clearing it out. She starts with Necropolis Knights, which are going to be a really cool unit. Good armor piercing, poison damage, tough, monstrous cavalry. And she's also going to start with these Sepulchral Stalkers, which is, again, going to be an anti-large monstrous infantry, not a monstrous cavalry, but slightly different. But they also have missiles that do some poison and armor-piercing damage. There's only 3 missiles, but it can do some pretty significant damage if they get targeted at close range. So, going to be really good stuff. So, Khalida's going to have an interesting start. It says it's a hard start. It's going to be because she starts around Skaven, High Elves, and some other powerful factions. Let's go check out her start point. Alright, so here's Khalida's start point on the campaign map. You can see that she is going to have, like I said, an interesting start. She's going to start way down here at the southern end of the map. You've got Teklas nearby. You've got Lizardmen in your immediate vicinity who are going to be tough, because Lizardmen are really good against unarmored infantry, and the Tomb Kings field a lot of unarmored infantry. You got Dwarves nearby, which same thing. Your infantry's not going to be very good at armor piercing early on. So it's going to be an interesting start position, and I think that's why they consider her start position harder, is because she's definitely got a lot more challenges in front of her than, say, like Cetra did. If we take a look at her skill set, just to get a feel for it, let's go over here to the skill tree. All of them kind of have these special things up top, which are really cool, which, again, even less attrition. And this is where you get those special abilities that each of these lords have. This is a pretty cool one. There's a wind spell that you can bind to her. And then just all these other ones. This one gives Frenzy and extra physical resistance, so that's going to make her considerably better in melee. Really cool stuff. And then just again, this is how you get to these Desert Strike. This one's not available in multiplayer, but huge buff to the melee capabilities. All this other stuff down here is pretty standard. Other than this one, Resurrect is similar to Reanimate. Again, not available in multiplayer, but you know, it's going to give you extra replenishment. So really cool features that she has in terms of abilities. If you look at the Skeleton Chariot, it can come online at rank 14, and then the Necro Serpent at 18. So awesome mounts, cool abilities, and definitely going to be a fun lord to play because of that start position. Again, I love that Katep and Khalida start outside of the typical Tomb King's lands because it's going to give you something unique and fresh to take on every time. Good grief. 4 legendary lords. That's right, 4. This is awesome. I love this. I mean, if you're going to get downloadable content, you're going to pay for it. It's great having a lot of content. So our last one is Archon the Black. This guy's going to be cool, and his abilities are actually going to be kind of unique in the sense that he can enable recruitment of certain vampire count units, which is going to be cool. He has extra diplomatic relationship with vampires, and he starts near some vampire factions. But it makes him suffer diplomatic penalties with other Tomb Kings, which is that's why he's gonna have a hard start, because the other Tomb Kings are not gonna like you at all. And we looked at this Winds of Magic. He gets extra Winds of Magic. Vampire corruption doesn't affect public order in his lands, because again, this guy's apparently somewhat friendly to vampires. He gets extra melee attack for heroes and defense for heroes in his army, so that's going to be a special bonus. He actually starts with some Crypt Ghouls and a Tomb Scorpion, which is going to be a really good anti-infantry unit to start with early in the game. Let's go take a look at his start position. Alright, this is the start position for Archon the Black. You can see he starts a little bit over here to the west of the Land of the Dead where Cetra started, so you start a little ways away from him. And your initial enemies here are actually going to be Bretonnian type kingdoms and dwarves, so that's what you're going to start against. Should be interesting. Let's go ahead and just kind of start up a battle. Let's look at his skill tree just real quick. I think Cetra was the only one I managed not to show. But Cetra has a cool skill tree. I've gotten to play with it quite a bit. But in any case, yeah, he's got some of this special stuff up here, like the Curse of Undeath. This is awesome, because if you're undead, it's a map-wide healing, which is a great skill to have for undead armies. The Lore of Death, again, so he's got Life Leeching, Doom and Darkness, Soul Blight, Purple Son of Zerus, so watch out, Dwarves, Fate of Buna, lots of good stuff. Arcane Conduit, I mean, he's got all the stuff you'd expect. Necro Strike, which is going to give him massive buff to weapon damage. Tomb Strike is just like the lower version of it. You can buff all the units in his army just like all the others. Buffs to movement, Canopic Jar production, replenishment, you name it. It's all down here. So cool skill tree. He has the Skeletal Steed and Skeleton Chariot up at the top as well. And then he has this quest battle for the Tomb Blade of Archon. So pretty good stuff. Let's go ahead and jump into a battle, and I'm just going to give you my thoughts. I've gotten to play about 20 hours of campaign, so as you're getting to watch a little bit of combat action here, I'll just be giving you my thoughts on the game in general, or on this DLC in general. Alright, here's the battle playing out for us, taking on some of these Bretonnian troops that were nearby us. You can see their lord here. I've already got skeleton archers unloading, and here comes my giant Tomb Scorpion who's got the enemy lord in his sights. Oh yeah, that's cool. You better believe it. So Tomb Scorpion's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be a brutal unit. So I've played probably about 20 hours of campaign, all of it with Cetra the Imperishable. So I'm excited to try the other campaigns too. So what do you get in this DLC? 4 legendary lords, a unique roster, very unique building trees, very unique technology trees. Each lord is very unique in and of themselves with unique benefits. You get cool units. I mean, 4 legendary lords and 4 campaigns that will all be very worthwhile playing just because of the differences that you're going to see from one to the next, in my opinion. So very exciting stuff. Is it worth it? I think so. I think this is one of the coolest DLCs I've seen. And that's saying something because Warhammer has had some pretty good DLCs. I guess there's some that people weren't like a huge fan of, but I think Warhammer's had some good DLCs, and this one is no exception to that rule. I think this DLC is going to be worthwhile for people who are looking to expand their game and to get some more unique content. So very excited for it. I'm not sure exactly how these guys are going to play out in multiplayer yet. I don't know because I haven't had any experience with it, but I know in campaign you're going to like them. They're going to start off maybe feeling a little bit weak or slow, but as you get a hang of it, you use those treasure hunting lords, you get those buildings built, you're going to find that momentum quickly starts to shift into your favor. So if you like playing a faction where you're going to start off a little bit slow, but you start to build momentum and then really feel like you own the map, Tomb Kings are definitely going to be able to fit that bill. Like I said, all the while giving you a very unique play style. So I think you all are going to enjoy it. Like I said, I've played about 20 hours. I found it to be very enjoyable. I can't wait to play more of it. So yeah, not just saying this because, you know, I got early access to it or something. I've actually played it. It's good. I do think this one's worth your while if you want to expand your Total War Warhammer 2 game and get more content and more things to enjoy. So hope you all enjoyed the campaign overview of the Lords here and get to see a little bit about it. Hopefully I've given you some informative stuff to start with so that you know which Tomb King you want to start playing as when it comes out and how I feel about it. So again, I didn't find any weird bugs, crashes, other weird stuff. Played good, it was fun, enjoyable. Factions are different. You can start in 3 different areas of the map, like the 4 legendary lords, so there's going to be a lot of replayability. Anyway, like I said, hope you all enjoyed it. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I will see you in another Tomb Kings video soon.